Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 12th, 2024 Fairfield Board of Education regular meeting. With us this evening is Mrs. Rinaldi, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, Mr. Asa, myself, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Guernsey, Mrs. Flynn, and Mr. Krasnoff, as well as Superintendent Mr. Testani. If everyone could please rise and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Lee, you want to start us off tonight? Thank you. Okay, student reports. Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Go ahead and which order you want to go in?
Hi. I know it's the last meeting, sadly, so. Starting off, our music department will be in Boston on Friday at it's like a showcase where they're gonna, play their instruments, and just it's like a kind of a, how do I say this, like festival. Not really a festival, but like a display of their aptitudes and a great way to show their talent outside of school. In other news, Reagan Braley designed the new Fairfield K-9 unit logo. She won a contest for it and designed it, got the most votes and won. Connor Cohen and Natalie Compare received the U.S. President's Scholar Award given by the U.S. Department of Education. Apparently it's a very big deal. I hadn't really heard of it beforehand, but a number of students in the Future Business Leaders of America Club were competing in the Spring Leadership Conference today. We had a total of 21 students, which apparently is a lot for one school to send. Mock trial is in finals against Lime Old Lime. We'll have the results, I think, tomorrow. The choir students will be looking forward to the Townwide Choir Festival this Thursday. I don't know if anyone else is going, but I hear it's going to be very good. We have the Battle of the Houses coming up, where each of the houses, so 3 in total, Warner, Webster, and Wright. Wright is the best one. They're green. We'll be competing in a series of competitions, like a 3-point competition, tug of war, rock, paper, scissors, a relay race, and a special new edition coming up, which Connor Cohen didn't want to tell me about, so I guess we'll have to wait. The Asian Cultures Club hosted a nice celebration for Chinese New Year where you could purchase a red envelope with a message that you could send to a friend, a teacher, or just someone you didn't really know. And it was a cool fundraiser. We got to learn about Chinese culture, and I participated. It was very nice, and they had little snacks that you could try out, which were from like China and Korea, so it was very interesting. And that's about it for today. Thank you.
Hello. At Walter Fitzgerald, students in the environmental chemistry class engaged in a water filtration challenge. Students designed water filtration devices, collected local pond water in the Aspeduck Land Trust, and used water testing kits. And one student's water was tested to be drinkable and won the challenge. On Thursday, February 8th, Rose Healy, who teaches Intro to Cultures and Communication, gave a presentation to students and staff about Chinese New Year. Students presented red envelopes with Chinese coins and fortunes to each other as gifts. Students created dragon crafts and proceeded to dance in a dragon parade. The entire school engaged in learning about the symbols and traditions of the Asian New Year. On Friday, February 5th grade students from the Talented and Gifted program at Louis Marin in Bridgeport took a field trip to our campus. The pollinator pathway, they gave a presentation and students engaged in planting seeds and a series of lab activities on the sun's energy. And this will be an ongoing mentor program between both of the schools. Students and staff wrote messages for each other given out on Valentine's Day. Each student and staff received an envelope with a Valentine's positive messages at the end of the day. And the students played a Valentine's Day themed bingo at lunch. And on February 28th, our school celebrated Black History Month. A U.S. history class was responsible for the celebration. Students and staff cooked and purchased a meal one day Pei came to Walter Fitzgerald and taught students and staff Liberian drumming. And he told stories about his immigration and from his home in Liberia.
All right, students have begun planting seeds in pots to begin this year's edible garden and pollinator garden. The seedlings will be planted in our gardens after Mother's Day. The students have chosen which seeds to use this year and will be adding a pumpkin patch for next fall and various native plants to the property. The school was gifted 2 temporary greenhouses. Unfortunately, one greenhouse broke during a windstorm, and 2 students created a plan and fixed it. On March 6th, students in Algebra 1 and the Science of the Cosmos classes completed an engineering competition to design and create a flotation device with a GPS attached to it. It will be used as part of a Long Island Sound grant project, and students will take field trips to Mill River sites to test out their designs. On March 7th, the students in Physics of Music course interviewed Coleman Connolly for a podcast episode. He is a former graduate of Fairfield Ward High School and a sophomore at a college in Tennessee. He answered questions about how different instruments actually produce sound, pitch, and about the music industry. Coleman and his fellow friends from Ward have a local band called the Low Darts, and they play at local venues, for example, Park City Music Hall. While he was home for spring break, he came to our class to perform songs on the keyboard, electric guitar, and answer our questions. Reggie St. Fort Collin from Aspetuck Land Trust came to Walter Fitz for students to interview and be on a podcast or an episode of the podcast. He answered questions, took a tour of our campus, and connected us to a new Beehive mentor, and helped our staff with connections to community organizations. Students and staff are engaging in a competition for March Mammal Madness. It is a tournament designed by professors at Arizona State University and features new animals every year. A bulletin board is displayed in our lunchroom with playing cards for all 64 contestants. We will follow along the university's website and videos. On Wednesday, April 3rd, the champion will be announced. I personally chose the sperm whale. I hope it wins. Have a good evening.
Hi, how are you today? And for me, very excitingly, we have senior internship. The applications are going to close soon, and it's very exciting to hear what everybody's planning to do. The Yukon decision did come out, and that's a pretty big deal in our school, so that's also very exciting.
Okay, good evening, board. My partner called out sick today, so hopefully I do this some justice by myself. Going all the way back to February 7th, we hosted our annual Taste of Ward Future Mustang Night for incoming freshmen. It was a great success. It began with a brief orientation for the students and ended with a tour of the electives we offer. We're also excited to welcome these students to our Ward family next year. Second, we have course selection, it's now underway for all students, except seniors, of course, because they are off to college. School counselors will continue to meet with their students and their families to plan academic programs for next year. Our junior families will now be meeting with their counselors as well to discuss the college process. Last month as well, for February, which is Black History Month, our Director of Student Services, Mr. Brown, worked to celebrate Black History Month with special morning announcements, pictures around the building, and decorating bulletin boards. Starting this week, they're now looking to celebrate Women's History Month, which is March. All right. Fourthly, we have our new bell. We're inviting all Ward seniors to participate in acceptance bell ceremonies here at Ward. From now until the end of the year, they will have the opportunity to ring the bell and share their future plans. Okay, last Wednesday, the Fairfield Ward Dean, Mr. Saganos, and upperclassmen presidents, myself and Sam Jeffrey, met with Mr. Cusco from the Will to Live Foundation of Kevin's Afterglow to present him with a check of $1,100 that will go to suicide prevention programs. This fundraiser was due to a joint effort from both Ludlow and Ward class officers. Fairfield Ward High School DECA program competed in a state career development conference, and 15 students placed as finalists. We are so proud of them for how much they've achieved in the last year since joining the academic program. As for music news, Fairfield Ward, Ludlow, and Fairfield Middle Schools performed an a cappella night on February 23rd. It was a brief incident, yet students persevered and got it done. They absolutely wowed the crowd. Also recently, our orchestra group performed last Thursday. Our choral program will be performing with Ludlow at the Town Choral Festival, and the ward band will be performing on March 21st. With a special shout out to River Peterson, who was selected to participate in the American Choral Directors Eastern Division Honor Choir. And Nick DeAndrea, also a student at Fairfield Ward High School, was selected to perform at the 2024 All-State Convention. Finally, as for sports, we'd like to give a congratulations to the Fairfield girls ski team, ward fencing team, and the ward wrestling team for all winning state champions this winter season. In addition to that, we'd like to wish our boys basketball team good luck in the FCX semifinals as they compete right now against Windsor High School at the University of Hartford. Go Ward! I'm sorry about that. I did not get news until now. Go Ward!
Peterson.
Well, I appreciate the shout out for River Peterson about the ACDA concert up in Providence. I should also point out that a Ludlow student, Victoria Bennison, was also selected for that excellent concert. It was a great experience.
I just want to add that the ward fencing team is a joint team, which I'm a captain of, and I'm on the men's foil team, which won the state championship.
Well done.
So a joint team effort, guys. Both schools.
Any board members have any questions? No? Thank you all for coming and sharing all the wonderful things that are happening and upcoming in schools. Well done, everyone. So happy you could be here, and I hope today's weather has inspired us all that spring is hopefully sprung, and you can stay or move on if you'd like, but we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much. Did you have something else?
Sorry, I just remembered. This year, it is the first day of Ramadan. I believe that was yesterday or today. And excitingly so, I am a Christian, and Lent actually ended up on the 14th and going to the 28th of this month. And Ramadan is actually right in the middle of that. So me and my friends are pretty much all fasting, which a lot of students in schools, I'm assuming, are fasting at this moment. So I thought that was interesting.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Okay, moving on to our next item, public comment. If anyone has any public on any of the agenda items, you can come forward now. Just give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen O'Neill. I live at 272 Home Fair Drive. I am a parent of two children at Jennings Elementary School, and I also wanted to just say hello because I was elected to the RTM in November, and I am now officially the RTM liaison to the Board of Education. So I just wanted to say hello. I didn't, of course, I didn't need applause.
So let's talk.
Well, so this is my comment. So I did listen to the State Board of Education meeting last Wednesday, and I was cautiously optimistic to hear some of the members of the State Board of Ed mention things like involvement of town planning and zoning, and also the idea of student achievement being tied in to the plan that you all will be coming up with. And I want to thank all the Fairfield parents. I was not there in person, but all the parents I heard speak. And what stood out to me and what I've heard anecdotally is kind of the disparity and the utilization between our schools, especially our elementary schools. And obviously you all have a huge undertaking, but what I am hopeful for is whatever plan you come up with, that utilization can be part of that plan, since it has such a large impact on student achievement. Just the idea of class sizes and access to things like social workers or psychologists can be affected by how many students are in a particular building. So I just want to let you know that the RTM is behind you, and we are looking forward to working with you in any capacity that we can. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. There are no presentations this evening, so we are going to old business. We are adoption of policy 6111, student calendar. Recommended motion that the Board of Education adopt policy 6111, student calendar. Can I get a motion, please, Mrs. Flynn, seconded by Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly. Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, did you have a comment?
Sure. Once again, I tried to push this out to the public a little bit just to bring awareness to the work we were trying to do. We didn't receive any communication of which I am aware, and I have not received any questions from board members. But just to reiterate that the goal of this policy, as we wrestled with the school calendar last year, was to set up parameters where the board really strongly indicated last June that it was comfortable making decisions on case-by-case basis, which, while entirely legitimate, could set a future calendar up to keep being pushed further and further into June. And so the idea being that as the board makes its decisions, that we could at least have a definitive beginning date or no earlier than date, a no later than date, and that the board is then, it's kind of like working with a budget. The board is then allocated the school days in between to make its decisions for the community, reflective of the community at that time. And that was really the primary goal behind the work that we did here. So if there are any additional questions, happy to answer them. But again, I haven't received any to date.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I will take it out to the public. Any public comment on this item? If not, back to the board. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Approval of Technology Education Curriculum Computer Assisted Design 2. Recommended motion that the Board of Education approve Technology Education Curriculum Computer Assisted Design 2. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Asa, seconded by Mr. Lee. Before we go on, I sent an email to all the members of the board today with an amendment that I'm going to propose to this. Going to read that amendment before we have discussion. My amendment is to change the motion on the agenda to that the Board of Education approve Technology Education Curriculum Computer Assisted Design 2 per the March 12th, 2024 enclosure number 1 curriculum document and the posted CAD 2 changes memo dated March 8th, 2024. This is, okay, just before I move on, I'll ask for a second. Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, thank you. This is simply to capture a few edits that were made in between our first read and the backup from this evening, just so everyone's clear on what we're voting on and that it's what's before us tonight and not from February 13th. And that memo is available for the public. It's posted with our agenda area, and it was literally about 3 different edits. Does anyone have any questions on my amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Oh, sorry, back to public comment on the amendment. All right, back to the board. All in favor, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion on this item on the main motion of the approval? Mrs. Guernsey?
I just have a question about this curriculum because I was under the impression that we were exploring, or at least there were questions about offering the CAD classes, or maybe just some of the CAD classes in 0.5 credit increments. So is it possible that we could get an update on where we are with that? If those changes have come to the central office and if we'd be receiving them, and if so, when?
Good evening, James Evajancic, Chief Academic Officer. Thank you for the question. We do not have updated documents on 0.5 courses, semester courses for these 1.0s. The department, if they would like to move forward with them, was charged with bringing them forward. At this point tonight, we do not have those to present to you.
When those do become available from the department, how will that be handled? Will they be addendums to this, additional courses that we would vote on with expediency? Because obviously we want these courses to be available to our students in the upcoming school year, and course selection is taking place now.
Sure. So the department did have due dates so that if they bring them forward, they would be available for next year, and they would be brought forward as 0.5 courses. So you'd get 4 more documents that are similar to this, but essentially a half-year course.
And were you able to determine if it would be 4 more, or is it, are they also looking at CAD 4 to divide that into? Do you have a definitive answer on that yet?
I do not have a definitive answer on that. Just for backgrounds for the rest of the board, when I last spoke with the tech ed department, the first year course generally always runs as a 1-year course. 2, 3, and 4 have run as semesters, but they were in discussions to potentially leave the 4th year course because it is more advanced as a full year and only have 2 and 3 as semesters, but they were still debating that when I last checked.
So just one last question. Do you have, just to clarify, do you have any sense of when you might receive any information from them, or you don't know, or you're not? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of the timeline for the expectations.
It would be before the end of the school year. We have given them a timeline in April so that we can get a first and second read on your agendas as well as a public discussion before the end of the school year, and also so that the school administration can look at course selection for next school year. Students potentially would be taking them.
Thank you.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly?
So just to be clear, at this point in time, there is no one who is signing up for a 0.5 anywhere in the CAD sequence.
That is correct, with the one exception that as of right now, CAD 2 was approved as a 0.5 in the program of studies, which, depending on the vote tonight, will be altered back to a 1.0.
But has anyone signed up? I guess that's my question. Is there someone who picked all their courses on the understanding that they were picking a 0.5 and a 0.5, or?
No one could pick a 0.5 for the courses that are currently 1.0s. The CAD 2 is currently in the program of studies as a 0.5. So I would say yes, some have picked the 0.5 CAD 2 that will be altered to a 1.0. This is how it came to us in the discussion, that it was a 0.5 credit and a 1.0 was sought by students.
So what would happen to those students?
They would obviously meet with their counselors, and this would be switched to a 1.0 course.
Which means potentially they might have to drop something.
I guess that is a potential, yes.
Mr. Krasnov?
Do you have any concerns that it's just 10, 11, 12 now that can do it, now that you're saying the 4th might have to be a full year?
Can you just clarify what you mean by 10, 11, and 12 can do it?
On this document, it says for the beginning CAD, it's only 10th, 11th, and 12th grade that can enroll in it. And if you're saying the 4th year now may be a full year, do you have any concerns with that?
No, I don't have any concerns with that. With the prerequisites, no.
Okay. Mrs. Guernsey?
Sorry, so just one thing. Is there a way that you would be able to communicate with the students that are currently or past enrolled in these CAD courses that there could be additional options for them that are available? I'm just concerned about schedules being set and students not receiving that information in a timely way. I don't know that all of them are watching the meeting tonight.
For next year?
For next year, so that, I mean, they're planning now, but how would they know that these courses may be available? I mean, it just seems like something that would be important information for them to have.
It is dependent on the department moving forward. With the request for the 0.5s, they, like I said, they were debating this last PD day, which was last week. So we have not communicated. I guess we could, but I want to put it out there if it's not something that may come to fruition in terms of their planning and how that's going to look for next year.
Okay. The last comment I'm going to make on this is that currently the freshman course is a 1.0. So if this were to remain as a 0.5, those freshmen going into CAD 2 would then not have the prerequisite for CAD 3. Right? Or they would.
You would have to complete CAD 2 full year for CAD
Right.
3 full year, yes.
So we're kind of stuck in the middle here. Yeah, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Except that wasn't my understanding of it. My understanding was that in looking at these 0.5 alternatives, it's possible that while it depends on how the units are constructed, isn't it? Because it's possible that they could get whatever they need from just a 0.5. It's not necessarily sequential, is what I'm saying. But The point being, the staff are working through it. They have an interest in having a robust enrollment in their courses and yet maintain the rigor and the integrity that the courses have now. I'm just suggesting they may need to change the naming. It may not need, it might not work anymore to have it be 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe just specifically for 2, 3, and 4. I think the idea that there could be some creative options with how they do that would be fantastic, and then that would take this kind of aspect of the conversation and eliminate it. At least that's my understanding from what you tried to explain to us in policy.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that, obviously, until their discussion happens. Right now, it's written as 1 through 4 with prerequisites, meaning you'd have to complete the class before it in order to take them on after it, which would be similar to the 0.5s. But again, I don't have an answer until that final version and thought comes through the department.
Okay. I would say we are hopeful to see those as soon as possible. Any other comments from the board? All right, I will take this out to public comment. Any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Mick McGarry with the Fairfield Education Association. I would just say that, these courses, the flexibility of having the 0.5s is very important for our highest achieving students. It's very difficult for them to be able to fulfill all their graduation requirements and still take the highest level courses that they can in these particular areas. It's very difficult for them to, these are students with very tight schedules. So just having that flexibility with the 0.5s would really help them be able to pursue. I was actually literally just talking to one of my debate captains today. He's already at the highest level of math possible. He's looking to go to Fairfield University for math next year. And he's also running out of computer classes to take. And it's going to be really hard for him to fit that into his schedule. So just if we can get those 0.5s together so that students are able to take the courses in the area that they really care about, that would be very helpful for the program and for the students. Thank you.
Mrs. Maxon Kelly?
Just one final comment. I think it's important that I appreciate the comment of our FDA president, and I think I want to make clear that I think this board is interested in precisely the same thing, and it is also precisely something completely out of our control right now. It is 100% dependent on staff to give us that option. There's no blocking here at the board table. It's if they have the time to devote to this. I think many of us are very much behind it. So we're not a holdup on this.
Thank you. All right, back to the board. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item, World Language Curriculum, Introduction to Cultures and Communication Status Update. Just a reminder, we did have a first read of this course last time. Was asked to put this on hold as some information was looked into with the state. Didn't want to lose track of it, as that has happened with other languages before, so that's why I kept it on here, so we can get some of the information and find a direction forward on what's happening with this particular course. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Testani.
Thank you. I did look into some of the discussions that were suggested at our last meeting regarding this course. There were some concerns that were raised both from a perspective of least restrictive environment. If we look at this as a course that, since a lot of the students that have taken it for a world language requirement are IEP'd, and so that was raised as a major concern from those at the State Department of Ed. And in terms of how to maneuver or implement certain units within the course to have it count as a world language requirement, what was explained, and I think I sent you all an email regarding this, is that many times a course like this is used in tandem in middle school. So in 7th grade, for example, a student would take a course similar to the Intro to Cultures and Communication, and then it would be followed up in 8th grade with a Spanish one or a French one or what have you, and then you would issue the high school credit for that. student if it didn't take it as a high school level Spanish 1. So the tandem would count for the 1 credit. In terms of how this could be a world language requirement to satisfy graduation requirements at the state level, they did not see how this, as is, could be counted as a credit toward a world language graduation requirement.
So what is the, just so I'm clear, what's the status right now? Is this being offered for next year to anyone just as a regular course without it counting as a graduation requirement? Or what is the status? I guess not, because we didn't approve the curriculum. Is that correct?
Correct. There is no curriculum. There was no curriculum. So at this point, unless the curriculum is approved to be an elective course that students would have the opportunity to take, just simply as an elective and not to meet any graduation requirement, we could approve it at a later date as it was presented. I think there was some questions as to how and what cultures are selected and what is taught. And I think there was a lot more questions that were raised even in terms of it being an elective course.
Mrs. Guernsey?
I am interested in seeing this course come back to the board for approval. I've received so much positive feedback about this course from students and parents. And when we received the presentation, it was actually focused on students that were not using it as world language. So for their requirement, and I've heard from those people, and they found it to be a very meaningful experience for them. So I'm wondering, I don't know if this was in the program of studies for any period of time, and do we have students that already registered for it and then before it was polled, or what was the timing on that?
It was not offered this time in the program of studies because it had no curriculum.
Okay, so I guess my 2 questions are, or actually my request would be, I would love to see it come back to the board, and I would love to see the World Language Department explore ways to make that course meet the requirements for the world language, to understand, how much, like, what is the amount of content that is needed that's language based to make that fit that requirement.
Well, according to the State Department of Ed, it would have to be language based, the entire course, not a percentage of the course. So I think that's where it would need to go. And if that's the case, why wouldn't they just register for a Spanish 1, a French 1, an Italian 1, American Sign Language? I think that's where we're kind of in a no-win situation in terms of a world language course for a graduation requirement.
Else? Okay. All right, moving on to our next item. Racial imbalance plan, discussion of the State Board of Education, March 6, 2024, request for an amendment. I'll briefly intro and then let Mr. Testani take over. So as everyone knows, for the State Board of Education last Wednesday to discuss our racial imbalance plan that was approved by this board last August and approved by the State Board of Education of November in 2022. Bottom line short answer is they've requested a new amendment to that plan to be submitted to them no later than July 3rd, 2024. Before I let Mr. Testani speak to that, first I just want to thank everyone that came up and spoke with us and who stayed with us and board members, and I know everyone was behind us that day, and I know that I truly appreciated that. Just for the timing, for the board's knowledge, since the plan is due by July 3rd, working backwards from there, at the latest, June 25th would be a vote, June 11th would be a first read, May 28th would be a possible just rough draft, kind of get some input on it, but I'm just giving the latest possible, doesn't mean it may come forward, but just as leadership and Mr. Stani work on our timing on all of this, I wanted to give the board some general ideas of dates and when we, at the latest, we could expect to see this. But of course, we haven't had any meetings or discussion about this yet. So just kind of wanted to make sure that the new board members actually had the amendment from last time. So that's in your backup to let there be any questions or discussion about the process or how this normally works. But again, no content or anything has happened at this point from last Wednesday. And I don't know if Mr. Asa or Mr. Testani have anything else to say. Mr. Asa, did you want to say?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate so the public is aware. It was clear that the state board is looking for a updated plan. They are not looking for the solution in July. They are not looking for the implementation in July. It was clear to me, being there, that they seem to be understanding the gravity of the work that we've done and what is ahead of us. So I left that meeting with a positive feeling that when we present a plan to them, they're not going to be saying, well, it needs to be fixed by X date. I think they're going to want a fruitful plan that does have some guidelines and dates in it. But my take was that we have to do this thoughtfully and carefully, and that if it takes time, it takes time, and that's how we present it.
Sure. I first want to thank all the board members who were able to come up and support that day, and obviously the parents who came and spoke out in support of just the work that was done, and to express what they'd like to see for their school community. I think that was pretty powerful to hear, and the board needed to hear that. I will say that as we move forward, and we did meet once before the week before the State Board of Ed meeting, we held a meeting for parents at McKinley to come out, share their thoughts and their feelings, and I think that was a very informative session, and I thank everyone who came out to that, and I thank Katie for helping organize her school community, and Michelle for allowing those on Zoom to be able to participate. I think that was important as well, because I know there's a lot of anxiety amongst the public when it comes to the possibility of redistricting and moving schools. But I think it's important to recognize the fact that we are beginning to feel a crunch in space at McKinley School. I think it's important to note that the parents and the families there are also noticing that we're experiencing a crunch in space, so that if we do have to make some adjustments based on over enrollment at the school, we heard loud and clear that they would not be opposed to that as long as we took into consideration moving large blocks of kids in order to keep support systems in place and be able to service those kids well. And I can assure you that that is something that we heard, those of us who were there that night, loud and clear. So I think that's going to be an important component as we construct our amendment to the plan over the next 110 days now. So thank you.
Questions? Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Thank you to the three of you for representing the board up there. A couple of questions. Through the chair to Mr. Asa, you made reference to as we do it. What exactly are they imagining is it?
Whatever we come up with, because they don't have the ability, they stated that they will not be the ones to solve the problem or come up with the solution, despite us, politely asking for some help. It was clear that they want us at the local level to come up with a plan that eventually solves racial imbalance. They had some members made suggestions and hinted at, they had hoped that we include other town bodies and representatives and elected officials in that process. They even mentioned, the administration, potentially coming up there. The bottom line is, I think they're making suggestions of a collaborative effort, but not necessarily with them at the local level. So it is a plan that solves racial imbalance, which maybe...
But no solutions are expected.
The solution of resolving racial imbalance is expected.
The outcome of the plan is expected to be getting the difference below 25%. They did not state that it has to be done. When we went before them the last time, They were very clear that they wanted whatever plan we had implemented for next school year. I think that it's safe to say that the appreciation was there of the amount of work that went in by Mr. Testani and the administration to create the booklet and everything that was sent to them, showing how much work went into that. And I think it was pretty clear to them that that's not happening, and that realistically it may not be something that happens in the very near future, but they expect some kind of plan, which is basically what the law requires, a plan.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess I'm unclear on what is our process from here. Are we doing a brainstorming? Are we saying, okay, staff, come up with something and bring it to us? I mean, how is it going to work from here?
So we haven't discussed it yet since last week, but all I know is how it has been handled in the past is that the superintendent, in consultation with officers and possibly checking in with the state too, will draft an impossible amendment that will come to the board for edits, changes, additions, rejections, whatever, as like a first draft type thing. Because I know I had provided a lot of changes to the rough draft that came from Dr. Tracy in the interim, and I'm not sure if others did as well. So then that comes for the first read. So there's going to be a process where like something's put in front of us, I would assume, unless we talk and something else happens. I really like I don't want to call it the rabbit hole process is not one that I think we have much time for, but you know, I think that that's what's been in the past, but when we meet with leadership next week, we'll probably have a discussion about what that process looks like. So right now, I don't have a definitive answer for you, but I do know that that was how it was done last time. And in the past with Mr. Cummings as well.
And this might be a really good point to bring up what's happening next Tuesday, so that as you're having your leadership discussion and as staff is trying to consider things, that next Tuesday's town hall, that is a very specific moment where the public could come and share its ideas of possible components for this plan and get immediate feedback from us. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, I had that on my open comment is the town hall next week, for sure. So we haven't, that in the timeline is what we gave it, but if we need to have it earlier so that there's more time, we can do that too. But yes, March 19th is our town hall. I just want to, just to piggyback off Mr. Asa's comment, in terms of the collaboration piece with other town bodies, just so there's no like public misconception, we can't through this plan compel another town body that we don't have authority over to work with us. We could possibly include the ask or something around that nature. So I just didn't want anyone to think that we can start, you know, through this plan, order people to do things that we might wish for them to do. All right. Anyone have any other questions? No. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. First reading of increasing educator diversity plan, Ms. Ingram.
Good evening, Kanika Ingram, the Executive Director of Human Resources. Thank you for having us tonight and listening to how we're going to implement and increase our educator diversity here in Fairfield Public Schools. Increasing educator diversity is important, and in Fairfield, we embrace everyone. So legislation last winter requires that each local and regional education BOE must submit an increasing educator diversity plan to the Connecticut State Department of Education. We also must put this plan on our website. The good thing is that in January of 2023, the Recruitment and Retention Committee, who you see some of us here, attended 2 workshops facilitated by the CES and the State Department of Education on increasing educator diversity. So we've been working on this since January of 2023, and you'll hear more about the plan as we continue. I want to just put into context why it's important for us to increase educator diversity. And this is from Warner and Duncan and a tool that we heavily used in increasing our plan. So all students benefit from the talents of teachers from a variety of different backgrounds, race, and ethnic groups who have high expectations of them, treat them humanely and equitably, are culturally responsive, and are willing and able to view students and families as assets. Additionally, students of color benefit from having teachers from their own racial and ethnic group who can serve as successful role models, have the potential to possess a greater knowledge of their heritage and culture, and who tend to have higher academic expectations of them, yet the diversity gap between teachers and students still exists. So the call to action is to diversify and to strengthen Fairfield Public Schools educator diversity workforce to ensure that all students have racially, ethnically, and linguistically diverse teachers and leaders who can provide them with a high quality of education. Now, you heard me mention the gap between students and teachers in terms of diversity. So what I did was I pulled some data. I pulled some data in terms of our students and our staff diversity. I tracked just a little. As we started developing this plan, we actually came up with a vision for Fairfield Public Schools in terms of educator diversity and how we're going to celebrate diversity. We're going to embrace difference, and that's through creating unity. So the Fairfield Public Schools community is committed to practices of recruitment, hiring, and retention of a diverse staff that is ultimately representative of our student population in the global society. Now, as you're looking at these pictures, these are pictures of our students here in Fairfield Public Schools, and they come from a photo shoot that we did in collaboration with our Director of Communications last fall. These are some of the pictures when you heard me talk about the billboard. They were on the billboards here in Fairfield and also in Bridgeport. The next slide shows us our student data by demographics, right? So by race and ethnicity, and that's kind of small, so I wasn't going to read it to you, but I'll go down the list. So we actually did it by school. So we have school in alphabetical order. So if you look at American Indian or Alaska Native, throughout all the schools, we have 6 students total. Asian, there's 588 students total. Black or African American, there's 308 students total. Hispanic, there's 1,320 students total. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, just 3 students total. Students who identify 2 or more races, there's 522 students total. And then our Caucasian students is 6,573 students. At the same token, we look at our staff demographics, and again, this is by school. So for our Asian population, there are 13 staff members. For our Black population, there are 13 staff members. For our Hispanic population, there are 26 staff members. 2 or more races, 2 staff members. Unidentified, 1 staff member, and then our Caucasian population, 956 students. I also pulled data in terms of applications and who was applying to Fairfield Public School, which isn't on the slide, but I'll read that to you. And so this data comes from our applicant tracking system, which we actually implemented in 2016. So this is data from 2016. So first I pulled all applications for all positions. So the total number of applications for all positions since 2016 is 3,719 applications. The breakdown by gender. So those who chose not to, report their gender. This is the folks who didn't click on that button, right? 43 applicants, which is 1.2%. The people who just chose not to respond, so they didn't click on a button, they just skipped that answer, 915 applicants, which is 24.6% of the applicant pool. For female, 2,057 applicants, or 55.3% of the applicant pool, and those who identify as male, 697 applicants, or 18.7% of the applicant pool, and then 9 non-binary, 7 applicants, or 0.2% of the applicant pool. By race, American Indian or Alaska Native, 1, Asian or Pacific Islander, 89, Black African American, 148. Those who chose not to respond, 159. Those who did not respond, skipped the question, 920. Hispanic, 281. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, 4. Not Hispanic, 11. Two or more races, 41. And then white, 2,065. Then I chose to look at the data based on position, right? So for administrators since 2016, we had 423 applications in total. For gender, the breakdown is as follows. We had 2 who decided not to answer the question, so not click on the radio button. We had 225 who decided to skip that question. We have 139 who identify as female, 56 who identified as male, and then 1 who identified as non-binary. In terms of race, we had 1 who applied as American Indian or Alaska Native, 4 who was Asian or Pacific Islander, 10 Black or African American, 13 chose not to respond, 226 did not respond, 17 were Hispanic, 4 identified as 2 or more races, and 148 were white applicants. And then I broke it down by level. So for high school, we had 824 applicants since 2016. The breakdown for gender, those who chose not to respond, 18. Those who did not respond, skipped the question, 56. 489 identified as female, 258 identified as male, and then 3 identified as non-binary. In terms of race, we had 27 identify as Asian or Pacific Islander, 28 identify as Black or African American, 61 chose not to respond, 57 did not respond, 60 identifies as Hispanic, 1 identified as Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, 5 not Hispanic, 2 or more races, 6, and then 579 identify as white.
Can I ask a quick question about the data? You said that system was instituted in 2016. These are 2016 numbers that you're quoting us, or
2016 to
over
present.
that whole period of time? All right, thank you. I would like at some point to be able to see the data.
I can send it to you.
It would be very helpful to
Not a
actually
problem.
have a look at it. And if there are any kind of top level conclusions you can draw from those data, it was very difficult to track it all this way.
Can I just follow up on that? If we could please just add anything to the existing item and then republish so that it's all in one place and we don't have separate things happening, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So now I'm going to turn it over to our recruitment and retention committee that's going to talk about our plan in 3 buckets. So the recruitment bucket, the hiring and selection bucket, and the retention bucket.
Thank you. First, I just want to let the board know how much I've enjoyed working with this committee, my colleagues, and specifically our teachers on board. One of them could not be here this evening because she's celebrating her daughter's 12th birthday, but it's been wonderful to serve on this committee. And as Ms. Ingram indicated in the presentation, we've had really great experiences in working with area colleagues at Cooperative Educational Services in Trumbull. So whether you know this or not, historically in Fairfield, or at least in my years here, the bulk of our recruitment has happened through Fairfield job fairs. They've been hosted at Roger Ludlow Middle School, Fairfield Ward High School, and people have traveled to us to interview and apply. We have new goals through this process. So our goal currently in this plan in recruitment is we would like to increase visibility and expand recruiting efforts to include additional strategies that attract interest of a wider candidate pool, netting a 2 to 5% annual increase of diverse applications. So we want to reach out and go different places to widen that net for us. Who's going to manage this? Our Human Resources Department's going to manage it along with this committee in front of you. What is our plan? What do we plan to do as far as strategies? As I said, we're going to attend relevant recruiting events. we all have experienced, not necessarily in Fairfield, but websites that are sort of that black hole. We want to make sure our website is continually updated and our software for recruiting and getting candidates on board is inclusive to reflect our district efforts. And we also want to work to implement key marketing strategies. Our timeline is this spring of 2024 and ongoing. There is work to do, and with that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Ms. Bannock, to take it from here.
Thank you, Meg. I'm happy to be here this evening as well. And I just want to echo what Meg said. This has been one of the most interesting and fulfilling committees to be on, to feel like we can make a difference in the lives of our students in the district. So part of this process, of course, is figuring out whether or not we are making progress in this plan. So we'd like to implement a tracking system. It's a little intentionally vague right now because we're still working on the nuts and bolts of it, but we want to implement a tracking system to capture the interest of prospective candidates from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds. It didn't escape our notice that almost 25% of applicants choose not to respond to the radio buttons that let us know kind of where they are and who they are, and what kind of diversity and experience and expertise they can bring to the Fairfield community. So we would like to, through opening up this process, as Meg was talking about, continue to be able to then capture, are we in fact attracting more diverse candidates to the positions that are open in Fairfield Public Schools? We also would just like to work with our IT department to get a tracker on how many hits we have on our website directly, all the time, yes, but intentionally following any job fairs that are going on. So if we've hosted a job fair, if there's been a large one at UConn that Ms. Ingram was able to participate in, or any of the area universities that we're trying to create partnerships with, that we would then do an immediate tracker on the website to see if there was possibly an uptick, we're hoping an uptick in clicking on the open positions to be a part of our team. And then we're really looking to increase the number of websites that we're on, use different kinds of marketing strategies. We have my colleagues are going to talk a little bit more about this, but we have relationships with a few local universities. We'd like to expand our pool of universities and really ensure that our marketing materials represent, the broad range of educators that we'd like to see within our ranks. Our recruitment and retention committee, which is up here with me, will continue to develop this plan. And we are one of the resources that are required, are the people involved in doing the planning. We'd like to also engage other administrators through the district leadership team, other teachers, and educators at all levels in Fairfield Public Schools to be a part of this recruitment process, because really some of our best referrals come from our current employees. And so we want to continue to amplify that voice with, of course, then adding a more diverse lens. We are not looking, you'll be very happy to hear me say this does not look like it's going to cause any funding concerns for 23-24 or 24-25. This is really a manpower and woman power initiative. And a lot of the existing platforms are really just expanding our interest in. Concerns moving forward are going to be with time. Time is always a concern and a constraint. We are going to be working with our administrative colleagues to intentionally plan time to work on moving this forward. And then we also are going to require the support of the Board of Education, Central Office, Building Administrators, and any search committees that are put forward as positions become available.
Good evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about hiring and selection, which is we have two goals under hiring and selection. Our first goal is to train 100% of our school leaders and our hiring professionals on identifying implicit bias in the hiring and selection process. So just a couple of thoughts about implicit bias. So implicit bias is really the automatic, unconscious thinking that really shapes our behavior. So it's kind of a form of conditioning, and by definition, we don't really know we're engaging in it until we learn a little bit more about it. It's typically based on our identity experience, the messages that we sort of pick up along the way in our lives. It's not intentional. People can engage in implicit bias even if they don't really endorse the underlying stereotype. And as an example, I'll give you two. One is what's called a halo bias. And the halo bias is if someone has one positive trait, sometimes we tend to assign a lot of other positive traits just based on that one trait, regardless of what the evidence is telling us. And the converse to that is something called the horn bias, whereas if someone is demonstrating one negative trait, we will sometimes assume automatically they must have other negative traits in areas that we think are important, regardless of what the evidence actually says in the process. So our goal is to train our staff that are going to be hiring. We were looking to do that training at the beginning of the school year. What that training will look like, we are in the process of sort of working through at this point. So the State Department of Education has provided a module and a guidebook, which is very rich with information. And we have to think a little bit about what we want that to look like. So the module itself is about 80 minutes. So we have to think a little bit about a calendar of implementation. But we also have had conversations about, because this involves a topic that may be a little sensitive for people, that they need opportunities to sort of like debrief and have conversations around it as well. So that is something that we are in the planning process of doing. Success, so there's like success on a couple of different levels. One is just a participation success. So making sure that everyone, like we track who actually goes through the training itself. But the larger success, which my colleagues will also talk about, is that our processes and protocols adjust and we revise them over time. And ultimately, we get a diverse candidate pool that comes in the door. We hire them and we retain them. So there's sort of that short-term success for a goal like this, but there's the longer-term success, which is the bigger things that we're trying to accomplish as a group. And on that note, I am going to turn things over to Dr. Ian Banner, who will talk about our second hiring and selection goal.
Thank you, Jason. And I want to echo firstly what our colleagues Meg and said about working with wonderful people. It is wonderful to work with wonderful people, so thank you. Similarly, we see this goal of creating inclusive protocols for interview process to reduce bias in the applicant selection process, really meaning that this goal is focused on ensuring greater inclusivity for all people in the interview and selection process, and by overtly and explicitly acknowledging and therefore minimizing to the extent possible the inherent biases that we all hold. So we see that charge of this committee and the emphasis in this goal to be really the development of protocols and some of the procedures, such as crafting interview questions and scoring rubrics to guide us through the interview and selection process. Additionally, we plan to use feedback from candidates to refine these protocols, to train staff, obviously to serve on and conduct interviews, and hopefully with greater awareness and of our own biases. Obviously, the human resource and our building administrators will be owning this. Similar timeline, spring 24, ongoing. Some of our indicators for progress are really going to be around the documents that we create and implement. And the completed modules for training obviously will be a really critical piece, along with survey feedback that we get from candidates. We also feel that a real major part of this work will require time, shocker. For example, in developing the materials I just mentioned, the conducting of training modules, and one critical piece, which is really some of the challenges that we face, will be maximizing the fidelity in which the interviews are conducted and on the selections that are made. These are critical, really, and making sure everyone stays consistent. And a lot of this really is going to be district school leadership, the staff participating, and if possible, consultants. So with that said, to my colleagues.
Chris Kelso, I'm a world language teacher at Tomlinson Middle School. Thank you for having me to be a part of this committee and working with the esteemed administrators at Fairfield Public Schools. I'm going to take us through the last piece of this goal, which is the retention piece. It's a two-part goal, and the overarching tenet of this goal is to implement a revised professional learning plan to support teachers who are racially, ethnically, and linguistically diverse. Who's going to manage that is going to be HR and building administrators. And it's going to be funneled through the new Teacher Academy. The new Teacher Academy was built to help teachers, first year, second year teachers. In this plan, it's going to extend to third year teachers. The new Teacher Academy was built to help new teachers, both brand new teachers and new teachers, experienced teachers coming to Fairfield, to create student learning objectives and how they're going to measure academic growth of all students. That's the overarching goal of the new Teacher Academy. The people that are going to monitor it, building administrators, HR, the FEA certainly have its voice, and Chief Academic Officer. By when? By 2025, so we have a little time. Some of the indicators of progress will be obviously the retention of new hires in years 1, 2, and 3, and as well as feedback from teachers that are coming to the new Teacher Academy. There's risks with everything, but we hope that our glows will outweigh our grows, and we'll keep highly qualified teachers in Fairfield Public Schools. With that, I pass off to Barry Rubin.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Barry Rabin. I'm one of the house principals at Fairfield Ludlow High School. I have similar roots to Chris, and he and I both, I like that we're at the end of this group because we both have roots in the world language department. So we come from a background where we really celebrate those differences and uniqueness and linguistic, as well as a myriad other differences that we see in everybody. The final piece of our retention plan is about reviewing and revising and supporting the process of matching and working with our team mentors and the new teachers who are coming to the profession. It's not lost on any of us that we're living in a time where it's difficult to find teachers, and retention is a whole nother level in terms of people leaving the profession. So what we want to do is really focus on those first year teachers. So we really want to make sure that we're providing the teachers who are part of that team partnership with the appropriate times and supports within the buildings. We would be focusing obviously for them on years 1 and 2, which is when the team program is working with them for the state of Connecticut. The successful completion of our team modules would obviously be an indicator of success, but it's also part of the supervisory process in terms of our evaluation plan that we can monitor and see the growth of those new teachers. We also would want to seek the feedback of the mentors and the mentees to ensure that what we're doing is both reasonable for them in terms of the time and expectations, but then also really helping everyone to grow. We understand that, there are difficulties in terms of that time and the planning related to that team process. So there are those occasions where we might have unsuccessful papers or the timeline isn't followed, and we want to make sure to be able to follow up with everyone involved to be able to move forward with the best candidates and really support them in their growth with Fairfield Public Schools so that they continue to be with us at Fairfield Public Schools. And we'll do this in consultation between all the different stakeholders, human resources, the building administrators, the teachers. Feedback from students is critical in this part of the process as well. I can't help but say it, but I just want to add gracias por escucharnos. Es algo muy importante para todos los estudiantes. As a point person, for many of our families who are most comfortable speaking in Spanish, I can tell you that we need more of that among many different languages, and also just different representation than what our students are seeing day to day right now. And I think we have a solid plan to help us work towards that goal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming. I will open it up to the board. Mr. Asa.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the committee members for doing the work. I have a few comments and or questions, so just if you would bear with me, and if it sounds like a question, then I'll pause. Starting out, I think I heard, just if you could clarify, we're looking for a 2 to 5% annual increase each year of diverse applications or hires?
Applications.
Okay. And do we happen to know, looking back a few years, have we seen any increase in percentages? Were we able to determine that?
No, they're pretty steady over the last 5 years.
And what was that steady number?
It's about 1.2%.
Okay, so a considerable increase is the goal. Okay, thank you. We talked about tracking and a system to capture clicks and whatnot. Are we specifically asking each applicant, no matter what their background is, how they found us? Is there a question in the process? And has that data included anything that may be fruitful for your work that you've done?
So since my short tenure here in Fairfield, we've added that question to our application. And so we put career fairs, the website, billboards, radio ads. And so most folks over the last almost 2 years have found us through the career fairs that HR has been attending.
Okay. And I was just wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit on, I know you have administrators and teachers on the committee and whatnot, but how much consultation was collaborated with existing diverse staff? I know you rattled off a lot of numbers, which I couldn't keep track of tonight, and you're going to get us that. But do you, how involved was the current diverse staff in coming up with ideas and helping you form some of these plans?
So that is the next phase of our plan, is to reach out and have focus groups with our diverse staff. This committee was potentially put together before I came, and I thought it was a great committee to continue the work. So that is phase 2.
Okay, and the only reason I say that, and it's not to question any of the work that was done, but similar to many public health models, which I'm familiar with, obviously going in and getting the stakeholder voice versus us telling is so important. And I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I think that is such an important step, and we have this plan, but I want to make sure that we're open to modifications and changes to this work, depending on what that feedback is, because ultimately, if we're trying to attract more diverse applicants and candidates, looking to our own pool is very important, and they could probably share and shed a lot of information that could be helpful. And then taking that the next step, when it comes to retention, we talk about retention, and I'm curious as to plans put in place to maybe enhance our exit interview process, and what can we do when we find out if somebody is contemplating leaving? What actions can we take to potentially recapture them? Because something tells me, like with any industry, it's not always just the money, right? So what are we learning from that process? And I think that's something, and no fault to anybody at this table, but I think it's something that we've needed to improve upon for years, at least the 6 years I've been on the board. So I'm looking forward to hearing, as this progresses, what we're going to do to capture that voice. So when someone is leaving, what are we learning from them? And sometimes they'll just, it won't be helpful, but something tells me that it will be. And then the final comment I have, I am very much a supporter of awareness of unconscious and implicit bias. In my line of work and my employer, they do a phenomenal job of building that awareness of employees and doing it in a manner and a presentation in which you don't come out of there feeling like you're a horrible person. And I think we just need to be very careful the way we say things. So, Dr. Banner, you mentioned the biases we all hold, right? And yes, I know that is true, but I just hope that as we move forward, the way in which we construct and use our words are very well crafted and take into consideration people's reaction. Because if we turn people off right off the bat, they shut down. But if we do it in an open and welcoming way, I think it's enlightening. And it has been for me and many of my colleagues. So I think it's important to do that. And I appreciate that work. Thank you.
Mr. Krasnov.
Thank you all for all the work you did. It's really good to see. I did hear you guys consulted with CES. I happen to be with CES and voted on their plan this past week. Two things that they did that I really liked that I don't quite see here, and maybe there's a reason you decided not to put them in here, is you kind of stopped at the racial, ethnic, and linguistic. And as we heard with statistics, maybe sexual like your sex, male, female, binary, might be another thing to include in this because that is still part of diversity, and they did decide to include it. So just food for thought. In addition, they had a really good idea. They do stay interviews, just like exit interviews. They randomly pick people and feel out how they're feeling with the climate currently. It might be another good thing to implement so we don't lose people and not know why. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee.
I understand it's a big goal. You're looking at a 1% increase in teachers' application in the ethnic groups, but I want you to just be aware that certain ethnic groups, the teacher profession is not a primary major, especially in college and things like that. So I don't want to see like, oh, we just going to hit this number. In Fairfield, all the teachers are outstanding, right? You guys hire the creme de la creme, and we know that. So I don't want to see increase just because we want to hit a number of a diverse group when we know that job pool in that group, and there's a shortage of teachers to begin with. So I don't want to see that being the priority going over the quality of the teacher. The second thing I would like to mention in your retention, was there any thought about doing a pair up or a mentorship program with a teacher of that same ethnic background? Because as you said, children learn better with someone of their same ethnic background. I think a teacher, and I could be wrong, but a teacher in this situation, especially in the town that we live in, might be able to grow better with someone of their same ethnic background. So I don't know if any thought was brought into that process, and I apologize if I missed it or.
So yeah, a lot of conversation around that. That's going to be part of our intentional team matching that Ms. Rabin spoke about.
Thank you.
Mrs. Flynn.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I just have one quick follow-up and then just one question. Do you have any current data in terms of retention of our diverse racial, ethnic, and linguistic backgrounds, a baseline kind of what you're working with?
I don't have that with me, but I can put it in the presentation when I update it.
Yeah, I think Mr. Asa references and a few other board members. The numbers you gave right at the beginning of this presentation, I found incredibly helpful and important, but I kind of lost track. I think having them in the document adjacent to this really highlights your starting point. And I think, every other school district in Connecticut is currently putting together something like this. So we're a small state. We're in the middle of a teacher shortage. These are, lofty goals, which I think are incredibly important. But I also want you guys to celebrate those bright spots, because the reality is there's going to be a lot of competitors for, this pool of applicants. So I also really want to see this work celebrated, even if it isn't necessarily as lofty as we all appreciate. And then just there was some slight mentions of our college programs and partnerships. Do you have any data points around how many teachers we retain or hire from those pools, our partnership programs?
So I can get that data to you, but I can let you know that through our new internship program with Sacred Heart University, they're in a dual program to be certified in elementary education as well as special education. We're interviewing, I think, 6 or 7 of them to bring them on for next school year. So we're really excited about that.
And it's really wonderful, and I've seen it with my own children and buildings, but I do you spoke to wanting to expand to other universities. Obviously, we're very lucky and proud to have 2 private universities in our community, but I would venture to guess that the demographics of those universities look a lot different than a University of Bridgeport or Eastern. Or so just that while we're celebrating our Fairfield schools, go to SHU, go Fairfield U, that we're also being intentional about the pools that we're looking at.
Ms. Guernsey.
I just have thank you for the presentation. I have a very brief technical question. I'm just trying to understand when I'm looking at the first reading and I'm thinking about how we're going to vote to approve this next. And it refers to enclosure 3. So I'm just wondering, is this what we're going to be voting on? Is this included in enclosure 3? Like, what are the parts of this that we're approving?
So you're going to approve the plan, not the PowerPoint with the pretty pictures, but the yes. that is what we want to submit to the state of Connecticut.
Okay, so just making sure that this is labeled next time so that we have the right enclosure number for our voting, for our motion. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. I really appreciate this work. This is something that I'm glad to see the administration and the staff really focusing efforts on. This is something I've been talking about for a while, and I'm very glad to see it in progress. I guess my fundamental issue with this, and I understand what this document is for, this seems like more of an aspirational goal-setting document rather than a strategy-setting document. And we're talking about the intentionally vague some areas. At what point will we hear more about specific strategies? I guess is my question. And also kind of related to that, again, these are all excellent ideas. What resources, consultants, reference materials are we using to try to develop new strategies?
So as we went through the plan, we spoke about our strategies. Some of them are broader than others. Some of them are very specific. If you need for me to go back over them or any one of them, I can do that.
I guess my question is, where did we come up with these strategies? Were they just brainstormed, or are we going from resources or experts in the field? Like, what are we consulting in order to develop a new set of strategies?
It was a collaboration. So it was brainstorming amongst us as a team. It was with the State Connecticut Department of Education. It was with CES. They actually gave us several resources. The template and how you see it is from the state, and that's how they wanted it displayed. So those are our current resources. We would love to have a consultant moving forward, but that's not in our plan until 2025. So we'll come back to you with that one.
I'll leave it there. The one other thing that I jumped out at me, and this is a tiny point, in recruitment, we're talking about increased number of online and print marketing strategies. Did you say at some point that you want the print material to reflect the desired type of staff?
What I was trying to say is that we want to make sure that we're including the mission of this group within that marketing material so that it's very clear that we are looking for, the most qualified candidates possible.
And I think that's great.
I was not meaning like pictures or things like that, no.
As somebody who has spent part of his career in marketing, like the idea of getting stock photos to represent what you like, please don't do
Absolutely not. No, it would be the messaging.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Thank you. So a few questions. First of all, I couldn't agree more with Mr. Asa regarding the importance of those exits. I love the idea that Mr. Krasnov said of the idea of that stay interview. I think that's really intriguing and could be very helpful beyond the I'm just holding on till tenure argument, but you might actually also get something good specific. One other thing I can't help but suggest, and there is no, I think, mother of a teenager in this town who wouldn't love to hear that this was part of this, which is any communication that goes out to a candidate who perhaps is not invited to an interview because maybe now they're not ready. Maybe they go out and get some experience and reapply at some point. And I know that doesn't help you in the immediate, but the current process of applying for jobs so often is submit and never hear a word, ever. And that is just so discouraging for so many. And honestly, it would truly make Fairfield a very different place to submit a resume to if you actually heard anything back from somebody. Even if it is sorry, at this point we have moved in a different direction, whatever it might be, because we know that we can be in positions in September, actually at any point during the school year where we're looking to hire again. And we might go back to this exact same pool. And that's just the overwhelming feeling out there is my kid, myself, I put an application out there, heard nothing. And I think that's one small way that you could be different. And I'd be curious, but I think that could make a real difference. A few other questions. When you give us that data that since 2016, I would hope we'd have it by year. I have no doubt that it's going to confirm exactly what you just said, which is we've been kind of flat, but I think going forward, we would want to see it like that. So not just as one single group. I also had a question regarding what in this plan, especially, would you consider to be new thinking for Fairfield being implemented? And I throw that to anybody.
I just think in the terms of recruitment overall. So from my understanding is that we have our own career fairs, but we've never really ventured out to go to others. And so last year we did our own substitute job fair, which really, really was very successful. And we were able to garner several new substitutes from that career fair, but also reaching out to other schools. I did a career fair at Iona College and just really venturing out beyond our local four walls. So I think that's not new thinking, but just something new to Fairfield. And it's very simple and low hanging fruit.
I would also add some new thinking, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I will for a moment, sorry. The elementary team has developed their format of interview process. The middle level team has their format, the high school. Some of that overlaps, but part of our conversation is creating consistency amongst those team. And part of, well, that work's going to be done by this committee and those teachers that we bring in as part of any interview process. And I do want to just add to your response from applications. I will speak for my school. Any application that comes in, they do get something back. In Applitrax, it's a very easy system. You can literally click, these are the people that I'm going to send a note to say thanks, but no thanks. That's not how I say it. Certainly, we do a phone call as well with feedback, but that does occur. Maybe not across the board, but we have those capabilities.
I think the implicit bias training would be new. I agree with Mr. Asa about we kind of have to think about how we do that, because I think it would be very educational for people, but we also don't want, to your point, make people feel bad coming out of that. But I think the learning that would go into that, I think would be very enlightening for us. So I think that would be new.
Mr. Lee.
I was just
Sorry. Okay. The new teacher academy extending one more year was 1 and 2 years, but the committee and the leadership at Fairfield decided to extend it to a 3rd year, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Thank you so much.
Okay, is that a follow-up to Jen? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, to Mrs. Tiley's point, I think that's excellent. And I think Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly brings up a great point. And it is a learning opportunity for us in this district, because all too many times we don't have that signature, right? Meaning that consistency at different buildings. So I would say to Ms. Ingram, if that is something that is working at Roger Ludlow and other schools, we should harness that and learn from it, so that with that idea of consistency, that if an applicant is applying to one school over the other, they should feel as valued and welcomed at any of them. And that consistent message is very important for that. So thank you.
Mr. Lee.
This is just a procedure question to Mr. Testani. So this has to be submitted to the state for their final approval. So the state will look at it, either accept it, send it back, ask for tweaks here and there, or potentially just say start over from scratch. Do we have a time frame or deadline on when everything has to be done?
So it has to be submitted by April 15th. And at that point, they'll review it. And you're right, they'll either send it back to us for revisions, or they'll accept it as is. They'll tell us to place it on our website, and they'll place it on theirs, and then we'll start implementing.
We probably won't hear anything back for several months. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I do want to just add, before any more questions, the committee did a great job working on this. I can tell you from the last 15 years working to try to diversify a teacher education workforce. It is increasingly difficult. To your point, every stone, every strategy was tried, from programs that would recruit kids coming out of high school and tracking them through college, and then trying to bring them back into the profession after college, to going overseas, to actually having an exchange program with teachers that came for 3 years from India. I can tell you all the number, and I don't have the number offhand, but it is extremely low, of teachers that hold certification in the state of Connecticut that are of color. Of those include those that are retired or moved out of state, but currently just continue to hold their certification here in the state just in case. So this is going to be a very difficult needle to move for every district across the state of Connecticut. We are all competing, as Mr. Krasnoff mentioned, for a small pool of candidates. And there's a number of reasons why in my work over the years, and why we're not getting candidates to enter teacher prep programs. The biggest and most consistent message that I received from kids as they left high school that were in today's student, tomorrow's teacher programs, was that they did not feel that they would want to enter a profession where they were treated so poorly, not only by students, but also by others. I mean, that was a resounding view they had of how teachers have been treated, how teachers are treated every single day. And if they're going to go on to college and invest the time and effort into a college degree, that they wanted to be in a profession where they felt like they were respected and they were valued. And until that changes, I think it's going to be extremely difficult to crack those barriers. We also have an extremely difficult certification process here in the state of Connecticut. I know that is being looked at currently. And I don't think lowering the standard is an answer to making more teachers and recruitment of a wider pool, but I think that there has to be some measures. That's why we suggested on the retention end to extend the new teacher academy. I think 3 years is probably the floor. We probably should look to extend that even further, because we know that the data suggests that 70% of the teachers leave within the first 5 years. I think that's a very resounding number. So when they leave, they're not leaving the district only. Many of them are leaving the profession itself. So I think we have a large hurdle to tackle. I think we have an amazing district that I think is attractive to many teachers. But I do think that if we're going to continue to be able to recruit and retain high quality instructors moving into the future, the landscape of how teachers and administrators and folks are treated, how they're valued and respected, how we show that needs to be more evident on a regular basis in order for that to change. And as a teacher, I'm sure you feel the same way on a lot of days.
One quick follow-up question, and I've lost track of this. Where are we with the issues of reciprocity in terms of state? Because that's another hurdle to recruitment.
Huge.
Not that that's within our control, but
They're looking at that. That's one of the areas that of focus right now at the state level is reciprocity. That I think they feel is one of the first steps. I know they don't want to lower the standard, and we felt, and we heard that at the state board meeting last week, because our charter schools are in violation of having certified teachers at an alarming rate. They tend to use the praxis as the barrier, but I do think reciprocity would help, because obviously Connecticut state certificates are pretty much accepted across all other states. Our bar is a little bit higher, and I think that's a good thing. Our students benefit from having high quality teachers and highly trained teachers, but at the same time, I think there could be a better entry point, and then a process for them to prove themselves over time, rather than just not even allow them to enter into a school building and into a classroom.
So this will be on our next agenda for adoption. Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes that the Board of Education approve the following February 13, 2024 BOE regular meeting minutes and the February 27, 2024 BOE special meeting minutes. Can I get a motion, please? Mrs. Flynn, seconded by Mr. Krasnoff. Any discussion? Back to the board, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I have a few things before we begin. Tomorrow night, we'll be presenting the budget into the Board of Finance. So for everyone listening, as you're aware, we did take a slight cut to the budget at the Board of Selectmen level. But we are hopeful that we will maintain the current budget asked at the Board of Finance beginning tomorrow night. If anyone wants to come out and support, we'd really appreciate it. I think it's important that the Board of Finance understands that the needs of the district continue to grow and that the increase that we're asking for is a modest increase, and it funds some crucial components to our school districts that will help support and enhance the programs for our students. So that is tomorrow night. Couple of information things that I think will be important for some folks in the public. Our ECC parent information session will be held Thursday, April 4th. If anyone's available from 7 to 8 p.m., you can come out to learn more about our program offers and that are new with starting this 24-25 school year. So we will be getting that information out. Rachel and Kristen Bruno have been doing a great job in trying to promote this, but I think it's important for folks to come out and get a better understanding of what our ECC will look like moving forward with our 3s, our 4s, and our new full-day programming for our 4+ kids. So as you all found when you entered into the room and sat at the table, March is Board of Education Appreciation Month. So we found a little gift and to show a small token of our appreciation for all the time and efforts that our school board members here in Fairfield put in for the benefit of our staff and our family. So thank you for your time and your efforts. I know it's not much, but I mean, what else would you want? To be paid? Couple of bright spots and then some informational things I think you'll all appreciate. What was not mentioned at this, I'll skip what was mentioned by our student reps, but the Ludlow UN Club competed for the first time in the Global Citizen Model UN held in New York City. 13 Fairfield Ludlow high schools competed with nearly 3,000 delegates from around the world, and they went on to win the award for Best Small Delegation. And again, congratulations to the students and the staff members who made it possible. This was their first time competing, and to walk away with a recognition like that is a testament to our students' achievements and also the staff that prepared them. Congratulations to Ludlow High School students Spencer Bradley, Natalie Campare, and Campbell Treschuk for being named National Merit Scholarship finalists for 2024. That is an incredible achievement, and I'm interested to hear more from those students as they move on to their college careers. We did mention the Ward DECA. On Friday, we had a group of Sustainable Ward seniors participate in a significant event at the state level. They were able to testify regarding the Green Monster, an environmental bill currently under legislative review. And those students were able to go out and add their testimony in support of the bill. So it was a pivotal moment for our sustainable practices here within the Fairfield community. So well done. Just want to recognize all our Fairfield fifth graders from across the district for participating in the annual Invention Convention as part of the district STEAM program. Our students did a great job creating their own inventions to solve a problem of their own choosing and present them to a panel of judges. We did the sports update. Just want to give a brief Brief teaching and learning superintendent's update. The district's professional development and evaluation committee has been meeting this year to revise the educator and leader evaluation system in alignment with the state's guidance document. In February, the State Board of Education approved the Model Connecticut Leader and Educator Evaluation Support Plan. The district's PDEC will continue creating our evaluation plan for presentation at a spring Fairfield Board of Education meeting. If interested, the state's model plan will be sent via a Friday packet for your review, so look out for that. Just an update on play-based learning. The elementary leadership team continues to engage in professional development about play-based learning, a legislative mandate for kindergarten. During our March elementary administrative meeting, all elementary school principals, assistant principals, and curriculum support engaged in professional learning at Riverfield Elementary School. Riverfield has been working all year to develop a play-based learning model. This spring and summer, we'll supply our kindergarten classes with the appropriate tools and begin training all kindergarten teachers for implementation in the fall. Brief assessment update regarding district assessments. Students in K-9 completed their winter administration of NWEA and/or Acadience universal screening. Leadership teams and teachers then began planning for individuals and groups of students as a result of those outcomes. In the next few months, students will be administered Smarter Balance and NGSS state assessments. There are no significant changes to this year's state assessments, and data from the student results will continue to be disseminated on a rolling basis as students complete the assessments. And College Board AP, beginning in the spring of 2025, 9 end of the year advanced placement assessments will be digital. We're also informed that AP Physics and AP Psychology will have adjusted curriculum and assessment features beginning in the fall of 2024. A follow-up memo will articulate these changes again in the Friday packet. And last but not least, I know you're going to receive an update at the next board meeting on chronic absenteeism, but just wanted to give a shout out to all of our schools across the district who reduced chronic absenteeism in December, January, and February, comparing their data from 2023 to 2024. We saw significant changes at McKinley, North Stratfield, and Tomlinson Middle School. But we did see a reduction in chronic absenteeism compared to those months in every school in the district. So kudos to our teams across all our schools in working to reduce chronic absenteeism within their buildings. Thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to committee liaison reports. Mrs. Rinaldi?
Board of Health meeting last night. Wonderful group of people. Make me want to get my medical degree. So February was Heart Month. It was Know Your Numbers. There was a number of screenings across Fairfield being conducted. One of the major topics that we discussed was the large reunification training. And it was just a mock training this time, but there'll be an actual one done in the summer months. And the training is around moving kids from schools to their parents. This time it was using police officers and various people in the community, but it was just reunification if there was an emergency or big issue that occurred. So that was done on March 5th. There will be additional training for the nurses at all of the school. During the COVID years, a lot of the trainings fell behind. So they're really getting up to speed across all of the schools. So it's very exciting. The nurses really enjoy it and they're really ramping that up. So that's a big area of focus for the next months until the summer. And also there's a new website, so completely revamped new website for Board of Health. So definitely take a look. It's much more user friendly and they've been working through it for the last 2 years, but it's now in its final stages and it looks really good. So check it out.
Yeah, just very briefly, Board of Finance is my top priority coming up, but tomorrow we also have Finance Committee I'm sorry to have stacked those up, but I tried to move it away from the original date of the 6th when everyone is up in Hartford. Other than that, Special Project Standing Building Committee approved the contractor for the Holland Hill roof project.
Mr. Krasnov?
Just real briefly, I mentioned it already. I was at CES, and I was lucky enough to help pass their racial imbalance plan. So I had seen one before, or racial equity plan. I apologize for the wording. In addition, I did help pass their budget for next year, and we went over some possible stuff that's going to be coming down the road with the state. Once I get some more detail, I'll share it with everybody. Thank you.
Just a quick update on the HVAC IAQ committee. Phase 1, they're right on schedule. Get ready. The bids are out. They're getting bids as we speak. So we don't see a delay in starting this summer on those 3 schools. On the second phase, third phase, and fourth phase, the building committee has it. And they are going to lay out a calendar that we should be able to see very soon. And we'll be having budgets and more or less how much the project phase 2 would be.
Just 2 quick updates. PTA Council will be hosting their first in-person meeting of 2024 on March 27th at 7:30 p.m. The location is still to be determined, but I will make sure and get that updated at our town hall, because I think that's going to be an important meeting for parents. And then Fairfield Cares, just 2 events for parents and the public to be aware of. The continuing Parent to Parent series is doing a presentation on eating disorders and body image on April 8th at 7:30 p.m. at the Wakeman Boys and Girls Club in Southport. And then save the date, because they've announced their guest speaker, Michelle Icard, who is an internationally recognized author, speaker, and educated, who brings relief and practical solutions to schools and community organizations around the world seeking to ease the uncertainty of adolescent development for both kids and parents. She's written several books, 8 Setbacks That Can Make a Child Success. She was very well spoken of at the Fairfield Cares meeting, and I've already heard from several PTAs who were very excited about this speaker. So whenever I hear from parents who are excited, it's usually something worth pressing around. So if you have parents who are interested, make sure your PTAs are including it in their newsletter.
Thank you. Facilities Committee, sorry, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly.
Just wanted to add to either Mrs. Jacobson or Mrs. Flynn, and obviously this isn't the board speaking, but myself, with your Fairfield Cares meeting, I believe that's tomorrow, and on the topic of mental health, pardon me for a moment of personal privilege, I'm hoping to advocate for your bringing to their attention that wait till 8th, I might be saying it wrong, the wait till 8th to the pledge, which is not something which Fairfield Cares has certainly championed as of yet that I've ever seen in any of their postings. But between both Fairfield Cares and PTA Council, I think it would be fabulous to make a full court press on that. I mean, the data now, I mean, we've been talking about it here informally, asking it to be added to Fairfield Cares surveys, but the data is now so unambiguous on that. I'm really hoping that you could bring that up tomorrow.
Just a follow up. There is already a standing committee on Fairfield PTA Council that is already working with Fairfield Cares. Fairfield Cares last year did 2 presentations on Wait Till 8th and was working behind the scenes to get that all up and running. They're already working together and have been for quite some time. Kathy Haslett has been well in regards. I only know because I was the one pushing her. And the new, there's a full ad hoc committee now at Fairfield Cares is working with PTA Council. There's a full committee at PTA Council that is working with Fairfield Cares.
Facilities Committee, we are working on updating, as you know, our long-range facilities plan. We heard from our first round of administrators as our last meeting, so we were having another group come in, really wanting to get their input on this plan. So we're hoping to have a pretty rough draft at our next meeting and bring to the board a rough draft, not a first read or anything, but just give you a look at where we're at, allow any questions or concerns to be raised with everyone. Just want to make sure everyone follows along before we bring it out for the first read later in the spring. So that's where facilities is at. Anyone else? Okay. Open board comment. Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly.
I have several things here. First, I just wanted to confirm with the chair that once we approve a policy, it goes into effect immediately, correct?
Yeah.
So just as a reminder, and obviously you know this, is that to the public more, that means we're voting on the graduation date at our next meeting. Because I've already been seeing some social media posts about waiting till April, and that's not the case anymore. So that was the first thing. In no particular order, I did want to say very enthusiastic shout out. This Saturday also happens to be the Odyssey of the Mind competition. Fairfield is sending up many teams just in the primary division alone. We've got those little guys, Mill Hill, Holland Hill, and Riverfield all sending up teams. We have 2 middle school teams, and then in the grades 3 through 5, we've got Riverfield, Mill Hill, North Stratfield, and Holland Hill. And this year, for the first time, PTA Council has sponsored multiple teams, which has been a wonderful alternative for those kids, either because they have gone to different schools, or simply that was the only way they could get a team together, was to pull diverse groups together. So I'm just very excited that Fairfield has a strong contingent going up this Saturday, and just want to wish them the best of luck. And then finally, I just wanted to say my own personal thank you, Mr. Tassani. I think this is pretty amazing, so just wanted to say thank you.
Anyone else? I just wanted to, I'll just mention again, tomorrow Board of Finance is here in this room for our presentation at 7:30. March 19th is our town hall, which gives the public an opportunity to have more engaged conversation with board members. So that is here on 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 19th for those members. So with that, is there any public comment? No? All right. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn that this regular meeting of the Board of Education adjourn. Mrs. Rinaldi, seconded by Mr. Lee. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Can we get the clock fixed?